Hi everyone, it's Steph here from the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to my first quarter stats video. So today I'm actually going to be showing you all of the stats in my reading spreadsheet. I figured this is going to be the easiest way to do it instead of trying to screenshot everything. So we'll talk through how all that's going, as well as looking at my bingo board from hell update as of March, which actually we might start with that because that's a little bit easier. So if stats videos are not your thing, or if you are just going to be annoyed about someone who reads a hell of a lot talking about their stats, maybe click away from this video. I read what I read, and a lot of what I read is children's literature as well, so I tend to have higher numbers than most people. Some people find this interesting, as we discovered last year, and I thought that I would, try and do these at least quarterly so it's a little bit easier for you to see how things are going in my reading. Here is the updated bingo board from hell for the end of March. So if you're not familiar, Winn from Literary Diversions created this bingo board, and you get to set your own challenges based on your own reading goals. So I have 9 reading goals. Some of them are the same as last year. Some of them are a little bit different, and all of them are designed to help me get through what it is that I need to achieve in my reading in 2025. So we're going to go left to right, top to bottom, and I'm sorry if you can hear street sounds. It's just that kind of day. It's the middle of the day here. The first square is to read 100% of my pre-2025 physical TBR, which may seem like a lofty goal when I'm actually 42% of the way through that already, which is pretty good. For my challenge to read 75 audiobooks, I've currently read 33 audiobooks thanks to Libby and the library. Technically, this number is higher, but I'm not counting any time I read the same audiobook, which has happened a couple of times with some of the Kate Daniels books. I count it the first time and then I don't count it subsequent times. That's just a personal decision for me. There is also my challenge to film and upload 12 tri-chapter videos. I've uploaded 4. Technically, I have a 5th one that's already ready to go. I just need to edit it. Then for my finish or catch up on 12 series, I'm still currently sitting on 3 series read, but I have made some progress in other ones. I think I've read 4 or 5 books through other series that I'm trying to read for this year. I did complete my 80% of my monthly TBR. In fact, I think between reading and DNFing books, there was only 1 book I didn't get to in March, and that's fine. I'll get to it at some point. I have read 29 out of the 50 junior fiction, middle grade or young adult books that I'm planning on reading this year. I have read 55% of my 2025 acquired physical TBR, which I think is great because even though I am bringing in quite a lot of books, I am reading them fairly quickly. I have read 10 nonfiction books out of my goal of 20 this year. Also really good. Like, this is just something that hopefully I can keep increasing as time goes by, but I have read 10 of them so far. And I have read 40 out of 52 book club challenge books. I think this number might be a little bit different, but I've got to double check the numbers between March and the end of March and the start of April. So we'll just go with 40 books. I haven't completed the challenge yet, but I'm pretty close. So that's the bingo board update. As for my spreadsheet, so if you're not familiar with this, I have a video that introduces it, but this is how my spreadsheet currently looks. That's all the way in March. I have removed any April content from this, but you can see I'm collecting a lot of data. I'm making a lot of notes. I know some people like to see the kind of notes that I make, but I have my tropes and keywords and content warnings, and I'm also tracking anything for readathons and challenges, and I'm trying to track what I'm reading for various reading projects more for my own benefit. So this is kind of just the general page where I fill in all of the data. And the color coding is working in helping me differentiate between the months, so I'm definitely appreciative of that. Then we have my series tracker, which includes the 12 series that I'm trying to read this year, as well as anything else that's ongoing. And occasionally I find a series that I haven't included in here. I am currently actively trying to read through 17 series. In those series, there's 208 books. I've read 121 of them, and I have 87 left to read. As I'm finishing them, I'm just kind of ticking them off. Then we have 2025 acquisitions, and there have been a lot of them. There's been a lot of books. I haven't really done a full book haul. You guys can let me know if that's something you want to see. There is a significant number of review copies in here, and I'll talk about those in a moment. But I have acquisitions by month. So in January, I acquired a lot more books. I always tend to. It's the start of the year. And yeah, there are some April stats in here. But I have collected a total of 96 books. I've read 56 of them and DNF'd 4 of them, which brings me to my 58.3% as of the 7th of April. And then of those books that I have read, I have kept 39 of them. I've unhauled 6. I've gifted 4 of them. Those are gifted to my niece usually. And I've taken 11 into school. These are the pre-2025 acquisitions, so from 2023 to 2024. Actually, there's more books here from 2023 than I thought. Heather and I were talking about this the other day. Sorry, Heather, I was clearly not thinking because there are plenty more books from 2023. That said, I started with a total of 51 books from pre-2025. I have read or DNF 23 of them, so that's where my total comes from. And I'm just slowly making my way through them, and I've got a few projects and things that I'm hoping will help me tackle this a little bit more actively. This is where I am tracking my ARC and review copy savings. So anytime I receive a book for review, whether it's from a publisher, direct from an author, or from NetGalley, I am keeping track of the recommended retail price and popping it in here. And so over the side, you can see how much money I have saved by reading review copies. So in this case, $645.61 Australian, which has just been interesting to see because I do spend quite a bit of money on books, but I'm also equally receiving quite a hefty number of books as well. Then we have library savings. So typically from the library, I am borrowing audiobooks. So I'm just grabbing the recommended retail price for the audiobooks and collecting that by month. So far I've saved $356.38. And same thing with Kindle Unlimited, except with Kindle Unlimited, what I'm doing is I'm tracking the cost per month for the subscription, which is for me $13.99. I'm tracking how much I'm reading and the cost of the ebooks, and then I'm subtracting the monthly cost. And at the end of March, I had finally hit numbers that meant I have officially read the minimum number of books to pay off the yearly subscription. So now anything that I am reading is actually extra. So I think that's a good thing at this point of the year. So by the end of the year, this number should be really interesting to have a look at. Then I have all of my DNFs, which I'm terrible at remembering to track, but they're in here and I'm trying to be better at tracking them. And then we come to the statistics, which is probably the section that everyone is most interested in, which is where I have all of my tables and then I have all of my graphs. So when we have a look at these, books per month, pages per month, January was my biggest reading month so far, and that makes sense because I had basically the entire month off work, and I also was powering through a lot of kids' titles. February and March were both very good reading months. I can't complain about anything there. Over here, you can see my star ratings. As per usual, 4 stars is my sort of most common rating. That's because I know what I like to read. In terms of genre, romance is still my most read genre, but also followed closely by fiction. Again, that's because a lot of kids' books just tend to fall under the general fiction category. And then my romance subgenres that I track, I have read mostly contemporary romances this year so far, which makes a lot of sense. But the paranormal romance number will go up over the next couple of weeks anyway. So it'll be interesting to see what these numbers look like in another 3 months' time. So let's have a look at the actual graphs because they're probably prettier and easier to read on the screen. So over here you can see the genre wheel plus the romance subgenre breakdown. And then star ratings. The books per month and the pages per month. I think this one's going to be really interesting as the year goes on. Obviously at the moment it's only got 3 points of data. And then book format. I have been reading a lot of physical books because I'm trying to read down my physical TBR. So this is the most significant part of my reading so far this year. You can get a bit of a breakdown of ARCs and e-ARCs. So these are all digital. Graphic novels. I think basically all the graphic novels I've read this year, or most of them, have been physical graphic novels. So that counts into this category. And audiobooks, obviously, a digital form of reading. And then we have book length. So the majority of the books that I read are novel length. I've got graphic trades in here. Reference covers any kind of nonfiction for me. Picture books have been a pretty big part, about a quarter of my reading, and then novellas making up some of the rest of that space. Then you've got short stories and anthologies. And what's this little one? All right. So poetry. I've read one poetry collection so far this year. And then the rest of the graphs. So I have my new reads versus my rereads. So obviously I read more new to me books than I do rereads, but how much is that sitting at? But 24 rereads overall. This is my Kindle Unlimited versus not Kindle Unlimited list. which is not to say that the books that I'm reading aren't on Kindle Unlimited, but I may have a physical copy of them. So that skews this. I only count it as a Kindle Unlimited read if I actually borrow it out from Kindle Unlimited and read it that way. Then we have my readership categories. So I'm mostly reading adult, but I'm also still reading a fairly significant portion of kids, middle grade, and young adult titles. So it's almost 50-50, just slightly more adult titles, which is pretty normal. Then we have author rep. So this is known author rep. If I can't find it at a quick glance on an author's website, I don't count it. Queer authors, BIPOC authors, Australian or Torres Strait Islander authors, and Australian authors. I am trying to read a lot of Australian authors this year. That is a goal. And then I also have a queer book category just to separate the queer author and the queer book, because I read quite a few queer books, but it's not always clear if the author is queer. And I am not out here to out anyone. So if I know that the author has spoken about being a member of the queer community, I include that. But I'm also tracking just the number of queer books. And then we have publication years. So everything from 2000 onwards gets its own little category, and then it's broken up in 10-year intervals after that. So basically, 3/4 of my reading is from 2000. Are books published from 2020 onwards, which makes a lot of sense. Essentially, 50% of my reading has been from books from 2025 and 2024, also because I'm trying to read through those physical TBRs, which include a lot of new release books. And then finally, I've broken down some of the rep in the books, mostly because I'm tracking it in my reading stats journal. So this is books that feature queer rep versus books that don't feature queer rep. So about 1/4 of my reading, I have books that feature significant queer rep. And if there is a major side character who is queer and a big part of the story, I will include that as a book. If it's just a character who appears for 2 seconds, I won't. That's my own personal preference in tracking that. Then we have health rep in books, and this is a lot of medical conditions, things like that are brought up and discussed. So there is that portion. And then there is disability rep in books as well. And again, all of these are numbers that I would like to bring up, but I'm also prioritizing getting through what I own. So I'm trying to find the balance between all of those things. And I think that is everything. These are the other stats that I didn't have on the screen before. So cumulative reading totals, which does include minutes read, rereads. That's a proper breakdown of the publication year, age categories, and yeah. That's pretty much it for my stats. So hopefully you have found this interesting. I mean, I always find stats interesting. I'm just a bit of a stats and number nerd when it comes to books. Not so much about anything else, but this I find fascinating. And I also like that it helps me to understand myself as a reader and to help prioritize things. Like, I know I want to read books that have more diverse rep in them always. All right, so that's it from me. If you have any comments or questions about anything, feel free to let me know down below. If you're interested in your own copy of the spreadsheet, I have a version of this. It doesn't have all the nice fancy pie charts because I figured out how to do those after I released the spreadsheet. So they might be included in it next year if you want them. But it's not that difficult. If you like the spreadsheet and you want to collect the data, you can always create your own graphs to suit your needs as well. If you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave any kind of graph or data emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.